So we're just going live, making sure we're in the platforms, and we are. So welcome into Mortgage Monday, basically where Andrea and I get to sit down and we get to have discussions about what's happening in the mortgage market or little tidbits of information to help people through the mortgage process. So thanks for coming in and joining us, Andrea.
Thanks. Yeah, it's actually Tuesday today, but because it was a holiday yesterday, we'll continue our Mortgage Mondays today.
Yeah, very true, very true. And so what I've had a number of questions recently about what is entailed in the mortgage process and how can people prepare for that pre-approval. And so what I asked Andrea to do today is to come in and share with us basically what you need to gather for info and some of that process right up until the point where we can go look at homes to help the buyer get in the best position possible. Number one, so they're not setting themselves up for disappointment. Last thing we want to do is find the home that you fall in love with and then realize later that, oh, I can't get the home. But even more importantly, by going through this process early and getting a letter from Andrea that says, yes, they can buy the home, it helps you negotiate very strong because the seller knows that that is one less thing that they have to worry about. And so thanks for joining us today, Andrea. And why don't we talk about the mortgage application process?
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, so I guess you could pull up our mortgage process and I can kind of talk through what the innovative mortgage broker process looks like. So specifically, we'll talk about a pre-approval today. And the first thing that we're going to do is have that initial meeting. So we call it the discovery meeting, where we're trying to figure out what the client's looking for when it comes to a mortgage. We're going to get some consent forms signed, receive a couple initial documents such as 2 pieces of ID. This is where we can also send you an online application where you can fill out all of your information and send it back, as well as sign that consent digitally, so that it kind of speeds up the process if you'd like to do it all online. Aside from that, we can also sit through and do it together and, sign the consent form in person if you'd prefer that. So it's just dependent on, the person and what they prefer.
So they don't even have to be located in Edmonton when we do this. They could be working on the rigs in Fort McMurray. They could be a buyer coming in from Toronto or Vancouver wanting to start this process, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can just send an online application and away we go.
Perfect.
So then once the initial meeting's done, then, the broker, myself, will, shop products that'll suit your needs. So once we figure out what you're kind of looking for, we're going to look at what we have as options for you. We're going to see what kind of term you're looking for. If you're looking at fixed versus variable, what kind of payment frequencies, all those types of things. If, you want to do a refinance or a debt consolidation, all those types of things. That's where we're going to kind of look at what we have available for you. So that leads right into where once we figured out what we need, that's when we're going to ask you for your documents. So we'll collect all the required documents that we're going to need to send to a lender for them to do their review of your application. And once we have these docs, we can wrap it all up and get it sent to a lender to get you a pre-approval in the beginning. So once a lender gets all of those documents and we've outlined everything that we need, then they'll come back with that pre-approval. So specifically today, we're talking
I'm sorry, Andrea.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. My LinkedIn had just opened up on me, and next thing you know, we were getting double the process. So if you can just start back again at mortgage approval.
Yeah. So once we have all those documentations in and we get it packaged and sent off to a lender, they'll take their time and do their due diligence to look through everything and then come back with a pre-approval. So like you had talked about, to have that in place so that you can go out and start shopping and know that you will be approved for the amount that you'd like to start looking for. So, after a mortgage approval, when it comes time to you buying a house or doing a refinance, those types of things, there are a few more steps in the process, but we can always talk about that at a later date and just focus kind of on the pre-approval today.
Yeah, perfect. So just looking at your checklist here, there's basically 4 simple, easy, early steps. First one's to chat with you, either online or in person. And then you have that ability to be able to go out and shop the products, to be able to get the client some options. sorry, not shop them, but I'd be able to explain them to the clients. And then it's the document gathering section, which we're going to go into a little greater detail here in a second. And then once all those documents are there, it gets sent out to the lender, and then the finishing details come together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's great. In a nutshell, that is that simplified version. Yes.
Perfect. And so then let's talk about some of those documents, because that's where a lot of this confusion can come in, depending on what type of job do you have, et cetera.
Yeah. So, kind of go around the general documents that you need. So first, you need 2 pieces of ID. So that'll be your driver's license, your passport, if you have a healthcare card or a permanent resident card, those types of things. We're going to need 2 IDs. We're going to need your income documentation. So like you said, depending on what kind of employment you have, you're going to need to provide your current pay stub. You're going to need to provide your 2 years of T4s, your letter of employment, maybe 2 years of T1s, or 2 years of notice of assessments from the CRA. When you're self-employed, maybe statement of business activities, or any other income docs such as your CCB statements, your pension statement, or a letter from your pension provider. So those types of things. So it's really dependent on the type of income that you have. Generally, when you're hourly or salary, you're going to need, that current pay stub, your 2 years of T4s from your employer, and your letter of employment. When you get into more of a commission employment, you're going to need, 2 years of your notice of assessments and 2 years of your T1 generals. And then when you become self-employed, or you are self-employed, that's when you're going to need more documentation, such as those statements of business activities. You're going to need your notice of assessments, your T1 generals. So all those things that can show us what kind of income you have when you are self-employed. So aside from the income docs, we're also going to need to confirm your down payment. So the funds that you're going to use for your down payment coming from your savings account, your checkings account, investment accounts, they're going to look at 90 days statements for that. So if you also don't have enough for a down payment, lenders will also accept a gift from an immediate family member. So if you are going to use a gift, they're going to need to see the proof of the deposit from that, as well as a gift letter from your family member showing that they are gifting you that money for down payment.
Yeah, it's perfect. So I think it's really important for the first time home buyer to understand that there is alternatives if you don't have all the money saved up. And
Yes.
That's where there's huge power in giving Andrea a call, having a quick discussion with her, because there will be other options that are available.
Yeah, there's tons of different options. So yeah, we can always go through what your situation looks like and what kind of documents you may need, or if you don't know where to get certain documents, we can walk you through that as well, which is great. So
that sounds great. And so for anybody that's watching this live as well, feel free to just comment your questions below, and we'll address them as they come up.
Yeah. Aside from those are the main documents we're going to need. Lenders will want to see a void check to see where that money is going to be coming from for your mortgage payments. And then some additional docs may be, a separation agreement if you're, separated from an ex or divorced, or any other documents that may come up with special circumstances. So again, it's best to talk to a broker like myself and figure out where you are and your certain situations so that we can get those documents lined up so you can be prepared for that.
Perfect. Now, one other question regarding the traditional income. There are some non-traditional methods as well, or items that you can use for calculating, like the baby bonus, for example. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the child tax benefit, so the CCB. So yeah, you can use that as well as an additional income. So it does help you qualify for a bit more if you do have some extra income like that.
Yeah, perfect. So if you do have income and it doesn't fall into the traditional hourly salary, commission, or self-employed, also don't hesitate to reach out, make the phone call. You'll probably be surprised at some of the items that would be accepted. Now,
yes,
a lot of people ask, what is T4 versus a T1 general, etc. So can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So kind of the differences between some of these documents. So a T4, like I said, when you're going to be providing if you are, hourly or salaried employment, they are provided by your employer, and it essentially shows you a summary of your employment earnings and the deductions for each year. So those you can get straight from your employer. A notice of assessment is completed by the CRA and will show the date your tax return was assessed, and if you owe anything, you're going to receive a refund or you have a zero balance. So you'll get one of those each year that you file your taxes as well, and those are generally more needed if you are self-employed or are on commission. And then the other one that a lot of people don't know a lot about is that T1 General. So this is essentially your tax return. So it shows a breakdown in everything that you claimed for your income taxes. And, it's generally a longer document, can be more than 4 pages long. And again, this is going to be needed if you are a business for self or you're commission employed. So this you can find from, if you do your own taxes, it'll be whatever tax software that you're using. They'll provide you a T1, or you can go to your accountant and they'll also give you a copy of your T1 each year that you have done your taxes.
Perfect. Now, this sounds like a lot of documentation required. Why do we need to be so thorough in this?
Yeah, so this is a very common question from some clients because it starts to become overwhelming when, we're asking for all of these documents. But essentially, it is a lender requirement. So our hands are tied on what we need because, the lenders are specifically needing these documents. When they review your documents, they have FIN-TRAC laws in place to help ensure that all parties involved are compliant in their due diligence with the documentation. So this helps to prevent any money laundering, mortgage fraud, other financial crimes. So they're just trying to cover all bases and make sure that, when they review your documentation, they're assessing all the risk associated with these things and making sure that they have all information. So with this as well, when lenders are going to need your down payment confirmation and your statements, stuff like that. Just make sure that you provide everything that is asked. We need full statements showing all transactions. There can't be any gaps or redacted stuff in those statements. So essentially, anything's going to be rejected if you don't provide full pages or you take off or erase things, just because lenders are going to need to see full documents. And they also take some time for lenders to review. So, being prepared for that is essential to making sure the lender has enough time to review your documents.
No, that's perfect. And so last week we did talk about that. And from the time that you get all the documents to the time you will get a pre-approval to let them go out and do some shopping, what does that timeline look like?
Yeah, so we generally say 3 weeks, just because it gives time for us to have our initial meeting, for you to understand kind of what options you have, make a decision on, which way you want to go or how much you want to be approved for, being able to look at all of that stuff. And then, documents are the longest process. So getting all those documents in, making sure not only receiving them, but making sure that they're exactly what we need. We have all dates covered, those types of things. And then sending back to a lender, like I said, they do need their time to do their own review and, be able to approve those documents. So we like to tell clients at least 3 weeks. But with
and that's 3 weeks from the time that they first meet with you or first have that first connection, right? So you're saying it's about 2 weeks for them to gather their documents, make sure all their ducks are in a row, that they're, you've been able to answer a lot of their questions and be able to make sure that they have everything submitted and you've got the best package to be submitted to the lender. And then takes about a week for the lender to look at the package of documents and assuming that there's no issues to get the approval back.
Yeah. And like I said, this is a generalized timeline. So, if your situation's more straightforward than someone else's, it may take, less time to get all of those process checklists through. If you have a little bit more of a special circumstance or you need more documents, that it can take longer as well. So we like to say 3 weeks, but give or take, depending on what your situation is.
No, and that's perfect. So for the buyers and the buyers out there, just think about the entire process and the way this works. That the more complicated your application is, the more a human has to get involved. I would bet that a lot of it is computer done, trust but verify, just a quick look and away they go. But every time you have to have a human pull it up, take a thorough review, it is going to add time, days. There's requests. They may need more information. They may need better explanations. Where did the gift letter come from, for example, right? They may want more clarity as who John Smith is. So any time that there is something that is a little bit out of the ordinary or not a slam dunk, it could add time. So like Andrea said, you may get an approval in 24 hours if information is a slam dunk and away you go. But I think it's always good to err on the side of the lengthier time, just in case something comes up and you're not disappointed thinking, you know what, I should be done this already. We're 3 days in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that ties in also to touch on what you had just talked about is, aside from the lenders needing time and all that kind of stuff to get your documents reviewed, if you send in all your documents, the first day you're like, I'm going to send them all to you, but they're not exactly what we need, or you're missing a page or those type of things, then that's going to, extend the amount of time we need, because now we need to come back to you, ask for different documents or more documents, or we may need to explain like where to get certain documents, or, maybe it's a document out of your control that maybe your employer, like your letter of employment, maybe your employer's busy and they take a week to get you a letter of employment. All those types of factors come into play, which can, add to the time it takes as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, Andrea. It looks like there are no questions from the people attending the live. So thank you for coming in and sharing that process with us. It's really about getting all the systems and processes in place up front so that when it comes time to go and make that emotional decision to write an offer on the property that you find, that you're not in your head worried about all the other little things. We're able to negotiate from strength. We're able to explain to the seller why they need to choose your offer versus the competition. We have a lot of strategies involved in that. And in a environment right now where we're seeing we have to compete with 2, 3, 5 other offers, a step like this, although it feels simplistic and it's very easy to procrastinate or put it off, it really could cost you thousands or even your dream home as we go down the road. One example, just recently, one of the realtors that I mentor, she was representing the seller, and she acknowledged that because the buyer was so well prepared and was able to explain everything in detail and really provide all the supporting documents and information, that the seller chose to select a lesser offer just for surety to close, to know that there were going to be no hiccups, no issues. And we are seeing more and more deals fall apart right now in the market because of financing. And to me, that is because we don't get our homework done up front, right? Realtors aren't saying, you know what, get your mortgage approval. Let's get it all, the pre-approval. Let's get it all in order. Let's get a letter from the lender, really making sure that, we know what we're expecting. So there's a little bit of homework up front. Will pay dividends in the future, I promise you. And so thanks for sharing this process, Andrea. And have a great week.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye. Oh, and also, if you had wanted to connect with Andrea, her contact info is in the description below. So, reach out to her anytime, phone, email, text, whatever works for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks. Have a great week.
You too.
Bye.